This afternoon, our clan is gathered here today to say goodbye to Aunty Lorraine. In the unique Kawatani tradition of family, perhaps clan may sound tribal to the younger members, but I think the metaphor is great for all of us. From grandpa and grandma to our parents, the unwritten culture was that we were one family, and anyone who called for help would receive help. And Aunty Lorraine certainly enjoyed the benefit of that family. Today's funeral is as much a symbol of that joint effort. From the day that Aunty fell to her short hospitalization, till today, the whole family pitched in and helped. It was a clan effort, and that is our token of farewell to Aunty Lorraine. I don't think I need to say any more than that. I have a short history of Aunty Lorraine, and I thought that, unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but the eulogy might be a little long today, so be relaxed. She was born on August 10th, 1926, the ninth child of 11 children, right after Auntie Helen and just before Uncle George. 1926, I'm sure you don't remember, but is the year that Aloha Tower was dedicated. It's that long ago. At the time of her birth, her father was 46 years old and grandma was 38. Her eldest brother, Masato, was 13 years old. Her middle name, Yaeko, was originally spelled Yaeko with the Y, but over the years, she lost that Y and she gained the English name Lorraine. Her name was legalized to Lorraine Yaeko Kawatani in 1987. She attended Kailani Elementary School, Central Intermediate, Farrington High School, and in 1945 she became a seamstress in the local garment industry. In the 1950s, she moved with Auntie Clara to California and was followed by Auntie Lee shortly thereafter. She was there in LA when Auntie Clara got married in 1954, and also in December 1957 when Jane was born. In 1960, she returned for several years to work at Polynesian Casuals. And so Joyce's prom gown and Sharon's party dress. But in 1970, she moved back to LA. Auntie Lee had returned to be a caregiver for Grandma until Grandma's passing in 1981. Auntie Lee suddenly passed in October 1986, and Auntie Lorraine, true to this family clan spirit, returned in February 87 to take care of Uncle Herbert and Auntie Lee's toy poodle, if you remember, Bobo. Since that time, she learned how to drive Auntie Lee's Honda, which now has antique status, and with Auntie Helen went to Halenani every day to watch over Uncle Herbert after his stroke. And when I say every day, it was every day. In December 1996, Uncle Herbert passed. From that time, she was commander of the Kawatani house, and it was a big, hilly house with a really scary driveway. And if you ever drove up that driveway into that tight, narrow garage, there was a point where you can't see anything behind you because the steepness of the driveway. Anyhow, I could never figure out how she maneuvered that car because it scared the hell out of me. The Auntie Lorraine that I knew was a tell it like it is person, and I always knew what she thought about things. I once bought a gray blouse from Caesars in Las Vegas as an omiyage. So I brought it over, and then I think that night she called me and she said, "Eric, take that blouse back. Give it to your mother." And I don't wear gray or black. I like pink, red. So I learned my lesson. I bought red blouses thereafter. So it was with Auntie Lorraine's recent years. The cousins were all concerned that she lived in a really big and steep house all by herself. True, Vanessa and Auntie Helen were her constant guardians, and Sharon would check in on her too. And Cindy, Helene would see if something could be done. But Auntie Helen knew her sister best, and that Auntie Lorraine knew how she wanted to live and to die in her own house. When I heard that, my response was, oh my God. And I said that many times. I asked Auntie Helen, what happens if she falls down and no one's around? What's going to happen if she doesn't eat? But Auntie had the last laugh, didn't she? Was she alone when she fell? No, she was saying goodbye to the handyman who watched her fall, unfortunately. Did someone help her when she fell? Right away. He came back and he called Auntie Helen right away. She was with Auntie all the way, Auntie Helen, that is. And we all went to visit her. So was she alone? And thanks to email, the whole family knew about her passing minutes after she had passed. So Auntie knew best, all the way to the end of her life, and I'm sure we have nothing to worry about Auntie from now on. The old Japanese tradition says that the senzo, the ancestors, will welcome and guide Auntie Lorraine during 49 days after she passed. The senzo means grandpa, grandma, our parents, and through time, all of us. And we believe that they're all gathered here with us today. Even though the youngest here never met Grandpa, Grandma, we're all connected through the history of the Kawatani clan. And we honor Auntie Lorraine's long life by reinforcing in our lives that we are not alone and our individual families are not alone. We are a clan. You know, I only knew Auntie Lorraine in her later years. And so I wanted to read excerpts from Auntie Helen and the cousins who knew a fuller history of Auntie Lorraine's life. This is Auntie Helen's. Sharon summarized this, so it's not Auntie Helen saying I. After the three boys, this is Auntie Helen. After the three boys, there were 5 girls born, and Lorraine was the 5th. Auntie Helen had to watch the younger ones, and Lorraine would always cry when she was teased or disciplined. She thought that they were mean to her, so she was called Nakimiso. If you don't know what that term means, it means crybaby. Auntie Helen was a babysitter for her younger siblings, Lorraine, George, and Lily, because the older siblings were working. Barbara, a sales clerk at Fair Department Store. Yes, I remember Fair Department Store. Clara at Addressograph, who transferred to the California branch of Addressograph when she moved to LA. Mabel, the storekeeper at the family store, since Grandpa traveled to neighbor islands, even Lanai, via the overnight freight ship. Their store had a hired help, Mr. Chagi-san, who taught Mabel to drive at age 15 so she could do deliveries. They also hired what's called mother's helpers. I don't know what that means. When the children were growing up, and they lived with them while attending school. First was Hitomi-san from Hilo, and then Kashiwagi Kyoko-san. The girls learned sewing from the back neighbor who was a dressmaker. That's a term I haven't heard for 40 years, back neighbor. These skills she learned as a child continued to her adulthood. She sewed for a local manufacturer after high school. She continued as a seamstress in California, eventually training to be a pattern maker for a California designer in the fashion industry. Lorraine did work for a designer who did gowns. Auntie Helen said that when she went to Las Vegas, she would see gowns in the storefronts and says, "That's one of ours." In later years, Auntie Lorraine learned how to drive, and Auntie Helen was the backseat driver in the front seat. Since Lorraine didn't know the streets of Honolulu, Auntie Helen was supposed to be there to tell her where it was. They often squabbled and ended up in dead-end streets. Okay, this is Joyce's recollection. Auntie Lorraine was a talented seamstress and a professional in her field. She was involved in dress pattern design. I recall her taking my measurements and designing my prom gown. She reminded me and others of Audrey Hepburn in her prettiness and petite size. This is Vanessa. Auntie Lorraine sewed my 6th grade graduation dress, did line dancing with my grandma, I think in the early 90s, and let us live in her house when we were rebuilding our house from May to August 2003. Her and my grandma used to go to Japanese club and Okinawan club at Lanakila Center. And it was more social, but with lots of entertainment. She would always call me when TV wasn't working. Her TV wasn't working. But when I got there, it was usually due to either her TV set not on channel 3, or the way she turned on both the TV and the cable box on and off. So the TV would be on, and the cable box would be off. Then she tries again, then it would be reversed, and the TV was off, and the cable box on. Thank you, Vanessa, for that patience. There were 2 separate occasions that Shane and I had to climb through the windows. Once was when she locked herself out, so Shane had to rip the screen of the window right next to the back door to get in. The other was when her keys were really hard to unlock the door, so she told me that the Mama and Son window was unlocked. That's the window to the room where the altar is. Another term I haven't heard for ages. She had a big rectangular piece of styrofoam in front of an old window frame screen that was blocking the Mama and Son window. She moved that to the side, and I could just slide the window up and climb up and through the window to open the back door. She said she used to climb through that window every so often when she was able to, whenever she got locked out. Sounds like that happened a lot. This is Shirley and Auntie Yukshan's recollections. She worked for Alfred Shaheen, a retail luxury resort wear manufacturer, as a pattern maker in Hawaii during the 1960s. As a young flight attendant, Shirley stayed with Auntie when she had layovers in LA. I remember staying at her apartment downstairs of the Komotos. Her large kitchen table was full of dress patterns. In retirement, she also sewed Halloween costumes for Shirley's boys. Well, at least she sewed for the guys too. Seems like she was just sewing dresses. Okay, this is from Sharon. Auntie Lee and Lorraine roomed together when they both lived in California. At Christmas, they would send boxes of presents. When we were young, we always had new dresses for New Year's from them. Mine was blue and Sandy's was pink. I didn't get a dress. She returned with Auntie Lee in Hawaii in the 1960s for a few years, but returned to California. She was a professional in her field and was meticulous in how to design and sew clothes. In California, she continued to improve her sewing skills by taking courses in pattern making and design, and for many years worked as a pattern maker for a manufacturer that I think made formal gowns. She designed and sewed her sister Mabel's beautiful long dress for Sandy's wedding and special dresses for many of her nieces. I was lucky to get sewing lessons and often was the recipient of fabric from her collection. She would often give a critique on my sewing projects. Aunty Lorraine spent many years in Los Angeles, California, living in an apartment unit downstairs of her older sister, Clara, and her family. I stayed with her a couple of times when I had seminars in California. I think the plan was that Aunty Lorraine would eventually return to Hawaii and they both would travel after retiring. However, since Aunty Lee died suddenly, Aunty Lorraine quit her job in California and returned to retire in Hawaii to take care of Uncle Herbert and Aunty Lee's toy poodle, Bobo. Sharon's comment, she learned how to drive. That must have been an adventure.